Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Daly, and we've been just chit-chatting in the studio during the break about how ready we are. Madeline Grant, Curtis Daly aren't ready at all, and it's December tomorrow. OK, right now, a bit of serious news again. In an interview last night, President Zelensky has suggested he's prepared to end the war in return for NATO membership, even if Russia doesn't immediately return seized land. Zelensky's proposal would signal an end to Ukraine's attempts to win back force by those territories that have been seized by Moscow. OK, you know, Curtis and Madeline, as you've just heard, we're talking baubles, are still with me. Curtis, now, I thought all this kicked off, right, OK, when Russia said, like, we really don't want you joining NATO, because that's when, you know, we feel threatened, so we're going to invade, and that's how the war all kicked off. And now the Ukraine are going, well, we'll call the war off if we join NATO. Does that make sense to you? Or is it just me?
Well, I think the timing's very interesting from Zelensky. I think what we know is that Russia's economy is suffering right now, and they almost can't afford to keep up their efforts. And I think that, to be honest, I think Zelensky's probably making the right move. I think he doesn't have another choice, to be honest. But it's he's essentially extending to Russia, look, I can see that you are struggling financially to fund this war. How about we maybe actually have a peace settlement and we join NATO? It's kind of funny, though, because it's what both sides don't want, but they're kind of equally losing. Yeah. Of course, like, you know, if it was our country and people say, would you give up part of our lands? You wouldn't, and the Ukrainians will probably say the same thing, most likely. But then, of course, that then means that Ukraine might go into NATO. I do think that's interesting. Now, I mean, Putin wants to take control of Kherson, to cut off Crimea, to make it harder for Ukraine to go back in. I think I don't really know if there's a strategy here from Putin. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. What does really strike me, though, is that for the establishment media and the corporate media, they attacked and criticised everyone who said maybe we should ensue for peace. They said, oh, you're a Putin stooge, you are. I mean, I remember Jeremy Corbyn said we should do this. We should have a peace settlement before war, not afterwards. And by the way, I actually disagree with him on some stuff, in terms of he doesn't want arms being sent to the region. I'm kind of relaxed about sending arms and aid to the region. However, this is always going to end up in a political settlement. And I think a lot of the hacks in the mainstream media are probably looking very stupid right now, calling anyone for peace that they're Putin stooge. And Jeremy Corbyn is essentially right.
OK, let's talk to a hack in the mainstream media.
Not everyone, by the way.
Fighting talk, young man.
There was a weird mood at the start of the Ukraine war, or not even just the start, but, you know, the first year and thereafter, that people who were arguing for some kind of realpolitik here were kind of suspect, and their motives were impugned, and it was implied that they might be like a Russian stooge. And I remember that very well. I haven't really expressed many opinions on this because it's just I don't know enough about what's going on the ground, and we hear such conflicting accounts. But I think what this tells us here is also, as well as what Curtis has been describing, the impact of changing Western leaders. You know, Donald Trump has made it
Trump
very
coming
clear.
in. Trump did say that he's going to be in power and sort it out.
He's made it very clear that he wants to have a settlement, but also that. I
mean, I don't think we should give Trump. I'll let you finish, but I don't think we should give Trump credit for this, though.
You didn't let her finish. You didn't actually let her finish.
No, sorry.
I'm not giving anyone credit. I'm not sure if it's a good thing. I mean, it's very sad what's going to happen. A lot of innocent life has been lost. It's been a horrific war. Ukraine is battered, and they've been so brave, and it's horrific. But you know, what can the West do if it's not going to start committing troops to getting fully invested in this war? But also, you know, it's not just Donald Trump. The German coalition is collapsing. Macron's policy on this has been a bit all over the place, I think. I think Keir Starmer has been pretty supportive of Ukraine, but perhaps not. Things are different to when the beginning of the war, when that started, and it was Boris Johnson being extremely bullish.
In theory, it's a positive thing, but what do you say, both of you, coming to you first, Curtis, so what do you say to a lot of people messaging in, I'm sick of it. We've got problems at home. We've got pensioners that have got a freeze. They've got farmers that are going to be struggling, education, NHS. We know the usual suspects. We need money spent at home. Can we stop giving so much? What do you say to that attitude?
I completely agree. I thought it was quite... again, I'm not necessarily against aid being sent over, but I was really disgusted with Keir Starmer when he said he was going to send £3 billion a year, endlessly, essentially. At the same time, they're cutting winter fuel payments. They're keeping the two-child benefit cap. And Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer's political project has been, well, we're not really going to change much. We can't really invest in public services. The finances are shot. We won't raise taxes on, like, the super rich. I'm talking about, like, the Jeff Bezos of the world. But we're going to send endless money to Ukraine. And again, this isn't an ideological point for me because I'm not necessarily against it. But what does that say to the people watching at home who think, I am struggling, rents are going up, my mortgage is increasing, and of course we're going into Christmas, the winter period, where obviously the winter fuel payments again, to see a Prime Minister who says, I'm going to send money endlessly. I think it's so out of touch.
That you describe is very prevalent, but it was, I think, really important in why Donald Trump won his victory. There was a lot of hostility. The word neocon was used a lot in relation to the Democrat leadership. I mean, I think that there are some really cranky people on the Trumpian side of things who've been incredibly dismissive of Zelensky and the Ukrainian struggle, which I think is very, very unfair. However, you know, people are right to say when they're struggling at home, when it's hard to, the cost of living is going up and inflation is so high as it has been in America and elsewhere. You know what? We should put ourselves first. Well,
Unfortunately,
I do want to say, though, quickly about Trump, that I know that you mentioned, I'm not saying that you're giving him credit, but there are people who are saying, well, Trump's in power, therefore things are getting better. It's not necessarily true because he's not in power yet. But you essentially got the establishment who are trying to quickly resolve these issues before he gets in because they're worried about his recklessness. His record is he's a war hawk. His entire cabinet, or half of them, are war hawks. Mike Huckabee won't even recognise the West Bank. Marco Rubio, for example, in 2016, Donald Trump was incredibly hawkish, and I don't want this idea that somehow Trump is going to ensue peace and is the peace movement, anything but he's an establishment with establishment foreign policy. I think that is what I want to, you know, make my point on.
I don't think that's true. I think a lot of Trump's policy, whatever you think of it, has been to do with trying to create new agreements that replace the old thing of America being a world policeman, so that they don't have.
Yeah, but that's not the case, though.
Unfortunately, we'll have to.
I do have to refute that, but okay.
Solve global peace. Soon. OK, but we have to go to the news with Tatiana, and here she is, looking lovely for you.